you doing New Year's Eve? I want to do that one. No, I'm not going to do that one. But I was thinking of doing what are you doing New Year's Eve? It's a standard. You ready to start? Okay. We shall begin on page 188 at the bottom. Esa einai el heharim me'ayin yavo ezri. Esa einai el heharim me'ayin yavo ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai ose shamayim ve'aretz. Ezri me'im Adonai ose shamayim ve'aretz. Esa einai el heharim me'ayin yavo ezri. Esa einai el heharim me'ayin yavo ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai ose shamayim va'aretz. Ezri me'im Adonai ose shamayim va'aretz. Esa einai el heharim me'ayin yavo ezri. Esa einai el heharim me'ayin yavo ezri.
Shabbat Shalom. Good Shabbos to all of you. This is our first Shabbat service since Hanukkah, and it's our last Shabbat service of the secular year 2022. So it's very momentous, but you're the diehards. I think, between the rain and the time of year, I'm happy to see that you've taken time out at the end of the week to celebrate Shabbat and to celebrate community and to celebrate our Jewish heritage. I want to welcome all of you. I want to offer a special welcome to who I think are a couple of guests. Well, you know the commercial Glenn from State Farm? We don't have Glenn from State Farm. We have Glenn from LA. So I want to welcome Glenn, who's a friend of Cynthia's. And I don't think we've met in the back. What's your name? Meredith? And you're from? Oh, you're here in Napa. Okay, well, welcome to Glenn and Meredith. And at the Oneg afterwards, I hope you'll all go up and give them a special welcome over wine. But we're happy that you're here. And we're going to start by lighting our Shabbat candles on page 120. And I'd like to invite Cynthia to come up to the bima to do us that honor.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotzav, v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Well, Gordon, it's been a couple weeks since we've done a service together. So which song are you in the mood for now? We could do Shalom Aleichem, could do Yedi Nefesh, could do Vashamru, could do Lachadodi. We could do one of your songs.
Do I need to answer this in the form of a question?
No.
Okay.
What are you in the mood for?
You choose. Whatever.
All right, well, why don't we do Shalom Aleichem, page 142.
Okay.
It's been a relatively quiet, peaceful week, and this is a song about peace, so Seems to make sense. Page 142.
Boy, everything feels real loud up where I'm at. I'm not used to hearing things this loud up here, so I'm just letting you know. So that's why I'm playing quieter, talking to the sound guy out there, over there. Mr. Andrew, okay. Let's do, we'll do the Debbie Friedman melody, which goes like this. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Boachem L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu ni l'shalom, Malchei HaShalom, Malchei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Zeichem l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Page 144. You know, as I look out at the congregation tonight and I see this completely empty section over here, I'm reminded of Wrigley Field in Chicago. Some of you know Carolyn and I were just in Chicago visiting our parents and our families. But Wrigley Field, at least when I was a kid, the left field and the center field bleachers were always the most fun, and the right field was the most boring. So I feel like that's our right field bleachers, and you guys are in left and center, and this is where all the fun happens. We don't have any beer for you, but hopefully your voices will lift us all up in the way that I guess Miller Lite used to when I was a kid. No segue from that to the next prayer.
Well, they're just waiting for you to hit a home run.
Right. We're going to continue with the Chatzi Kaddish, page 144. That was good.
What are we doing?
The Chatzi Kaddish.
I was enjoying my little joke, and sorry if I wasn't paying attention. It's just Chatzi Kaddish, page 144. Yitkadav, Yitkadash, Shemei Rabbah, Dialma Divrach, Hirutevi Amlich Malchute, B'chayechon Uvyomechon, Uvchaye Dechol Beit Yisrael, Bagala, Bagala, Uvizman Kariv, Ve'imeru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah v'Mavarach, La'olam u'lalmei almaya, Yitbarach, Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yitpa'ar, V'yitromam, V'yitnaseh, v'yitadar, v'yitaleh, v'yitalav, shemeda kudasha barichu, lehilah min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran v'yama, v'imiru, amen.
Our call to worship the Baruch Hu is on page 146. If you're able, please rise.
Lai la la lai la lai la lai lai. Lai la la lai la lai la la lai. Lai la lai 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 la lai lai lai. Lai la la lai la lai la lai lai. Lai la lai 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 la lai lai lai. Lai la la lai 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 lai. Barechu et Adonai HaMevorach Baruch Adonai HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Remain standing and join me at the bottom of page 149 in English. And uncertain on the border of light, shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai Hama'ariv Aravim. And please turn to the bottom of page 151 and join me. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol, all these things your Torah gives to us. And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works, in the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. V'yahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha uv'chol nafshecha uv'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavacha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'derech uv'shokbecha uv'kumecha ukshartam la'ot al yadecha v'hayu latotafot bein einecha uktavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha leman tiskaru Va'asitem et kol mitzvotai, v'yitem kiddoshim le'Elohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, liod lachem le'Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem.
Page 157 at the top of the page, please join me. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. Page 158.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh. No ra Moshe u'Miriam, Zelianu v'Amaru, Zelianu v'Amaru, Adonai le'olam va'ed. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh.
Page 161. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom, aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom. V'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom. V'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Shelter us beneath your wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen. 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 Amen.
the Amidah prayer, the standing prayer, is on page 164. We're going to do the first three blessings together and then continue on our own silently. Please be seated when you have finished. Page 164.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei hakol, v'zocher chastei avot v'imahot, u'mevii geula livnei v'neihem, l'ma'an shemo b'ahava, melech ozer u'moshia u'magen. Baruch atah Adonai, magen Avraham v'ezrat Sarah, atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechaye hakol atah Rav lehoshia, Mechalkel chayim b'chesed, Mechaye hakol b'rachamim rabim, Somech noflim v'rofei cholim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato, Lishenei afar, Michamocha ba'gevurot, Umidom melach, Melech memit, Umechayeh, Umatmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah lahachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechaye hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kdoshim b'chol yom yahalalucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh. Page 180. Yehiyu l'ratzon im refi Ri v'higyon libi lefanecha. Adonai Turi, Adonai Turi, Adonai Turi v'goali. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, acceptable Adonai, my rock and my redeemer. Oh, say shalom, shalom bimromav. Oh, say shalom bimromav. Oh, say shalom, shalom bimromav. Oh, say shalom bimromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, aleinu v'yakol, v'yakol Yisrael, v'yimeru amen. Oh, say shalom, shalom bimromav. Oh, say shalom bimromav. V'imru amen.
We pause in our service now to think of those in need of healing on this Shabbat, the last Shabbat of this secular year. Those in need of healing of body, healing of spirit, and healing of heart. And we ask God to bestow the bracha, the blessing of refuah shlema, full and complete healing on the following men and women from our CBS family or those known and loved by our congregation: Ilana Massey, Kevin Brackett, Michelle Camissia, Joshua Hyman, Diane Butler, Jesse Friedman, Marjorie Gilberg, Michael Blend, Jim Mates, Janet Marbury, Harriet Lehman, Brenda Flood, Bob Massey, Bill Lenish, Sharon Blevis, Sharon Hagan, Joan Elson, Michael Edwards, and Sylvia Samrick. And if anyone has a name, either at home or here, that they'd like to share, I invite you to please do so. The Misha Berach is on page 511.
May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishe berach imotenu v'kor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Shabbat Shalom. Good Shabbos again, and special welcome to Glenn and Meredith. We're happy you're with us. So who here has seen Andrew Lloyd Webber's play Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat? Few of you. Very dramatic, very epic, very colorful play based on a very colorful life. And the Torah portion on this Shabbat is called Vayigash, and it occurs toward the very end of the book of Genesis. And in many ways, it is really the climax of this dramatic, epic narrative about Joseph and his brothers. Now, those of you who didn't see the play or who may want a refresher might know that Joseph was the favorite of his father. He was kind of a spoiled brat. His brothers were resentful and jealous of him because his dad gave him a special, Andrew Lloyd Webber called it a Technicolor Dreamcoat, but in Hebrew it's called a ketonet pasim, which means a tunic of stripes, some kind of a striped garment. So his dad gives him that. The brothers got even more jealous, and they wind up taking Joseph, this is 12 children, and throwing him into a pit, and ultimately selling him off to Midianite traders who eventually bring him down into Egypt, where he's first thrown into prison, but eventually thrives and becomes a very important figure in Pharaoh's court. That's where this story sort of picks up, where Joseph reconnects with his brothers, and now he's in a position of power over them. Now, having been grievously wronged by his siblings many years before, Joseph now has the tables turned on them. They've traveled to Egypt, and now they're in the presence of Joseph and Pharaoh. And through an act of treachery and retribution, Joseph has the baby brother, Benjamin, who was even younger than him, imprisoned in Egypt. Now, Joseph tells the other brothers that they are free to return to their father, Isaac, in the land of Canaan, back in Israel, but they have to leave Benjamin behind in prison. Benjamin is now Isaac's new favorite. Benjamin is now Isaac's new favorite. Isaac had a thing for having favorites. And having lost Joseph, or so he thinks, a long time ago, this is a terrible thing to now potentially lose Benjamin. Now, the brothers still have no idea that this man is actually their lost brother, Joseph. So there's a lot of suspense, a lot of drama in this story. And in a deeply moving speech, Judah, one of the other siblings, pleads with Joseph to set Benjamin free and to imprison him instead. Judah basically says, put me in prison, not Benjamin, because my father is going to be in a state of anguish if yet another one of his favorite baby sons is put in prison. And Judah, during this plea to Joseph, and he doesn't know that Joseph is his brother at this point, he invokes the word father, Av, 14 times in 17 verses. It's very poignant. And Joseph is moved to tears after hearing this plea. He realizes that by keeping his brother Benjamin in prison, he would be doing to his brother and father what his other brothers had done to him and their father years ago. He'd basically be committing the exact same crime. And after he comes to this realization, he reveals to his siblings his true identity. He says to them, I am Joseph, Ani Yosef. It is a very dramatic moment, and all of them cry. But what makes it even more poignant is what happens next after his self-revelation to his brothers. Don't forget what they'd done to him all those years before. And his siblings are probably pretty scared about what might happen next. But what happens instead of Joseph punishing them for them having left him for dead is that he forgives his brothers. He tells them not to be distressed and not to blame themselves for having thrown him into a pit and left him for dead all those years before. And he says it was all part of the divine plan, a plan that will ultimately lead to the survival and growth of their people. Now, can you imagine how hard it would be to forgive a crime as terrible as the one that Joseph's brothers committed, throwing him in a pit and leaving him for dead? Joseph changes profoundly in this story. He transforms from being an immature brat in the beginning of this narrative to a mature man capable of empathy, of understanding, of forgiveness, and a longer-term vision of what is best for himself, for his father, and for his family. And it raises the question of whether or not people can really change. And what a lot of scientists and psychologists have said in our time is that much of who we are is actually predetermined by genetics, by our childhood, and by many other factors. And yet what this Torah portion and what the Torah, by extension, seems to do is challenge that idea and say that it is not our genetics. I don't know if they would have known about genetics thousands of years ago, but it's not about genetics, it's not about childhood, it's not about other factors. And though change may take time and it may be very difficult, it is always possible. Change is always possible from the Jewish perspective. That is why we have this story. That is why we have Yom Kippur, to teach us that each and every year we can always change. We can always be better than we were the year before. And there is always hope. There is always a sense of hope in Judaism that no matter what mistakes we've made in the past, no matter how challenging our relationships are with our siblings, with our parents, with our friends and family, there is always the opportunity for growth. There's always the opportunity for transformation. We're always able to be hopeful. And I think at a time when so much in our world seems so hopeless and where things don't seem to change and where we seem to be caught in these patterns that don't really lead to places of growth and positivity and vitality, I think it's a very important message for us at this time of year. When things are very dark, as they are at the end of December, there's always the possibility of light, there's always the possibility of growth, and there's always the possibility of hope. And that is, I think, one of Judaism's greatest messages. No matter how dark things seem, there is always light. No matter how hopeless things seem, there is always the possibility of growth. And as the book of Genesis comes to a close very, very shortly, and we enter yet another dark chapter with Pharaoh and Egypt and slavery, it's a message that will carry over and that we'll pick up on and talk about in the year to come. Keni Hiratzon, may it be God's will. We are going to continue now with the Aleinu prayer on page 586. Again, if you're able, please rise.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'teit gedula l'yotzer b'reshit, shelo asanu kegoyei haratzot, v'lo samanu kamishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, v'gohora aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, livnei melech, Malachi Hamachim Hakadosh Baruch Hu V'ne'emar V'haya Adonai L'melech Av Kol Haaretz Bayom Hahu Yeh Adonai Echad U'shemo Echad.
Please be seated. I have the honor of inviting board member Mark Charney to come up to the bima to share some important end of the year announcements with you. with all of us.
Shabbat Shalom. So on January 7th, next week at 10:30, Torah study will be in person with Rabbi Goldstein. The following Monday, January 9th at 10 a.m., Talking Jewish Tribe will be meeting to discuss the topic, when do you take a stand on issues? Sunday, January 15th, 10 a.m., we would like to invite you to continue training to become a CSS-trained security volunteer for our CSS security volunteer team. In order to be certified, you will need to participate in a two-part training. The first will be online, and the second will be in person. Registration is required, must be done online. There are more details online. Also on the 15th, CBS will be hosting the Interfaith Council Martin Luther King Day commemoration at 4 p.m. And that's here, I guess.
That's gonna be right here,
yeah.
yeah.
So, okay, that's Monday. No, the Sunday. So the day before Martin Luther King Day, Sunday. Wednesday, January 18th at 6:30, the tribe Your Right to Resilience will resume. January 20th, Shabbat will be our second in Faces of Faith with Omar Salem.
He's a police officer and a practicing Muslim.
Interesting, okay. And CBS office will be closed for the holidays tomorrow through January 2nd. We'll reopen on the 3rd. We'd like to give warm wishes for this week's birthdays and anniversaries. Happy birthday to Sylvia Samrick, Max Petrick, Donna Schechter, Geffen Abramovich, Joe Winograd, Mel Cohen, Elizabeth Alcott, Karen Lustig, Bradley Wasserman, Emmett Loring, and Paul Frank. And happy anniversary to Marissa Stein and Jason Loring, Barbara and Marty Nemko, Rona and Kevin Brackett, Paul and Susie Frank, and Robert and Roberta Solomon, our president. Okay, happy anniversary. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome, Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Mark. Our thoughts now turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. We remember those who have died during the past year. Clark Smith, Stephanie Rab Axner, David Ernesto Kaplan, Pat Pate, Annette Goldberg, Maggie Sherman, Sandra Banco Fichtenberg, Nicholas Huff, George Montano, Dean Wilson, Norman Charney, David Alpert, Renee Munoz, Michael Kossin, Paul Dworsky, Ed Eston, Micah Bicel, Jill Daly Katz, Gabriel Harrison Escalera, Colonel Ed West, Joe McCaffrey, Beverly Eigner, Ruth Morlett, and Lawrence Blake. We also remember and honor the yahrzeits, the anniversaries of the deaths of Sam Fink, Ludwig Green, Molly Dover, Joseph Siegel, Helen Schwartz, Mrs. Herman Schwartz, Jack L. Schwartz, Simcha Ben Chaim Abramovitz, Ethel Bus Simcha Abramovitz, Arthur Waldinger, and Howard Rosenthal. And if anyone has a name they wish to add to this list, I invite you to please do so. The Mourner's Kaddish is on page 598. Please rise. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, b'alma divrach hirtei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayachon v'yomechon uv'chayo l'chol Beit Yisrael, b'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mivarach Le'alam Ulamei Maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal Shmei Dekudsha B'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechamata. Damiran be'alma v'yimru amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba min Shmaya. V'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh Shalom b'mromav. Hu yaseh Shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. May the source of peace grant peace to all those in mourning and comfort to all those who are bereaved. And let us all say amen. Please be seated. So before we do our Motzi and Kiddush and have the Oneg that's waiting for us, we have our final song. It's raining. We've had a lot of rain this week. We have rain next week. We need rain. There are prayers for rain in Judaism. But that doesn't mean you have to sing anything about rain. But I'm trying to set you up in case you want to. But you probably have something else in mind already. So sing whatever you want.
Yeah, no pressure.
Right.
There's
That's another one.
pressure coming in from the north.
Right.
Let's see. Well, I thought we would do
You don't have to sing
what
that,
we did last week. I don't know if you stayed on long enough to hear our final
I think
song
so.
last night.
Refresh me.
Well, we did Any Dream Will Do from Joseph.
Oh, that's right.
And then we did Adon Olam to that melody. And I thought we should do that again rather than, so we could learn it. So it's on page 625. Pretty simple tune. We'll try to do more verses. Okay, so it goes. Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra Le'et Nasa V'chefso Kol Azai Melech Shemo Nikra. Same melody. V'yacharei Kichlot HaKol Levado Yimloch Nora V'hu Haya V'hu Hoveh V'hu Yeh V'tifara. Now we're going to do the second part. V'hu echad v'ein sheni v'hamshir lo l'hachbira v'li reshit v'li tachlit v'lo ha'oz v'hamizrah v'hu eli v'chad go'ali v'tzur chevli v'eit sarah v'hu nisi umanosli v'yom nekra biyado avkid ruchi v'eit ishan ve'a'ira ve'im ruchi gaviati Adonai li ve'lo ira. We're going to do just the first verse again. Adon olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzir nivra le'et nasa v'chefso kol azai melech shemo nikra azai melech shemo nikra.
It's very nice. I haven't heard that melody set to that prayer before.
Yeah,
good.
well, I don't know if I have either, but I'm sure it's been done.
It works.
I'm sure
It
it's been
works.
done. Donalam seems to work with
With a lot of
almost
different, I know,
everything,
with a lot of different melodies. Okay, let's please rise for the Kiddush and Motzi.
except for the red of the Edmund Fitzgerald. That's the only one. But it-
Inside joke. Okay, please join us. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Amen. L'chaim. Okay, and in anticipation of our oneg, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. B'tei avon. Shabbat Shalom. Happy New Year.
Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat.